Yes, you are.
Or are we missing Stephanie's name?
Yeah, Stephanie or Tony. I think they're both on vacation.
Hey, Becky.
You know, I saw the real estate sign as far as it finally going up for sale. And so, God, man, wouldn't that make an improvement there as far as the look alone? Yeah. How you doing?
So is cookout one still happening, y'all think?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything else.
Yes, sir. Did you tell me?
What's wrong?
It's not coming up on stream for some reason. We're having internet issues. I mean, I'm recording, so I can put it up later, but yep, it's on.
You ready?
Yeah, it's been on.
I really hate to hit the gavel with an attorney talking. I'd like to call the regular work session of the Kingston City Council to order. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand. Mr. Attorney, would you lead us in the invocation? And Mr. Griffiths, you lead us in the pledge of the flag. Yeah, you pray.
I was busy. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here to do the business of the city of Kingston. We pray your blessings of wisdom upon the council members as they study the business of this town. And we pray that you would guide them as they do that. For in Jesus' name we pray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Do we have any citizens that wish to address the council tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll go into item number 4, is presentation of the annual comprehensive financial report for the year ending June 30th, 2021. We have Richard with us tonight.
So I think you've either got the paper copy or a PDF
Yeah.
of the report. So you can see it's quite voluminous. So just cover just a handful of highlights from this and answer any questions that the board's got on. Well, I'm gonna not necessarily refer to page numbers, but I'll tell you that we completed the audit in December. We submitted it to the state comptroller before that deadline. That report's on page 1. Like in past years, it's been submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for their certificate of reporting excellence. The copy of the certificate for the prior year audit's included in this document. Having said that, let's flip all the way over to page 20. So the city's got 2 governmental funds, the general fund, the drug fund. And on page 20, you'll see the balance sheet, the assets, the liabilities, and the fund balances for each one of those funds. Then if you'll flip to 22 and 23, you'll see for the year the revenue and expenditures for each one of those funds. So the things that jumped out at me when I looked at this, like almost every other city, sales tax is up quite a bit in this year versus the prior year. Expenses pretty similar. But if you look at the top of page 23 in the general fund, you had more revenue than expenditures by $1,152,128, such that you almost doubled your fund balance, and that's incredible. Your fund balance is about 50% of your annual budget. At a minimum, you will see that be 25%. And I'll tell you, it spins down a lot quicker than it builds up. So
State law, is it 20 or 25?
I don't know that there's a law. The MTAS, I've heard 25%. Now there may be something else in there that I'm not aware of.
We adopted one thing one time, and it was 20%, I
Okay.
believe.
You
I'll
may
have to go
have-
back
yeah,
and
you
look.
may have done
And I probably
something.
asked the same question last year. I just,
You've done something over and above the minimum in self-imposing that requirement. But you're right at 50%. And so that says the extra money you got during the year, you put in the bank. So that's probably a very wise approach. The drug fund had more expenditures and revenue, but not by a significant amount considering the nature of that fund. The next few pages are the detail compared to the budget. Nothing unusual there. If you'll flip all the way over to 36 and 37. The water and sewer fund, this is probably what you're most interested in. So the balance sheet statement of net position on page 36 and 7 shows the assets and liabilities of the water and sewer fund. On 38, the number at the very top is somewhat higher than last year because of the rate increase and changing the rate structure that you did, which you were compelled to do because the state says you have to make money in the proprietary fund, and y'all lost money last year, which led to the rate study. So if you look over on page 40, 3 lines from the bottom, you overcame, so to speak. So you had a positive change in net position of 171,680. So you solved the problem that you had last year. There was a loss last year. You turned that around to a gain. I was talking to Michelle right before the meeting. You know, you can't do a whole lot to control your expenses because the cost of materials going up, salaries, health insurance,
Right.
retirement, all that. So you've got to, you know, the rates are really the only thing you can control. But the adjustments, the hard decisions you had to make, you made them, and as a result, now you're in compliance with state law because that number's a positive down there. So that's good news. There's not really anything else in this massive report that I want to call out to you at the very end on pages 134, 135. There are no findings or recommendations for improvements in internal control or any compliance issues or anything like that. So that's always good news. So a clean opinion. The numbers, again, are very good. The general fund nearly doubled its fund balance. Made money in water and sewer, which is required by state law. It's a good audit and a good report. Happy to answer any questions from the council.
Looks like a very good audit from what you described, and you know, I'm sure we'll probably dig a little bit more deeper into it if we need to and ask some more questions. I know that being a plus on the water side is really good to get us off that radar that the state had on us.
Absolutely.
So that's really good. Council, does anyone have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Richard, appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate Michelle and her staff, David, and all the folks that helped us with the audit. That helped it go very smoothly. So it's a good year, a good audit.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. The next is continued discussion of the purchase of a bucket truck for the Public Works. Council Member Stockton.
What I asked David is I asked him after our council meeting what is the plan as far as what was his proposal on what we're going to do with the bucket truck, because obviously the city shown that we had a need, and we were blessed this weekend that we didn't need the bucket truck. But if you know, it kind of gives us flashbacks of the one that we had. Probably the most recent was the F1 tornado that come through, and I'm sure the bucket truck was in a much of a need. And so if that had been what would have just happened, and if it went through and done more areas like it did that day, it would have been difficult to borrow in that case. So I think in any case, I think not having a plan is not an option. I think we need to have a plan on how we're going to do it, how we're going to pay for it, what are we going to get. So that was why I asked it to be put on the agenda.
Well, and if I could, and you're exactly right, when I was sitting in the office, I guess Saturday night, watching the weather all day, that thought went through my mind multiple times as I started seeing communities in Alabama and places that were getting heavy wind damage that day, and I thought, what are we going to do? And fortunately, we got lucky this time. But we've looked, I know that this has been beaten to death, and we've looked at all kinds of different options. I just, in looking at used trucks, and we've looked at some locally, we've looked at some around the country, and I think we keep seeing the same thing. What's on the market on the used market right now is there because it's worn out. And, in talking to some utility folks and other people who use these things a lot more than I do, kind of hear the same thing. When we're getting rid of these things, we've gotten our use out of them. And so, when you look at, you're looking at something with a lot of hours and a lot of miles and still in the $40,000-$50,000 range, are you putting that much money in a question mark? So, we've looked at that. I know that you guys have had some of the similar concerns. That's just a lot of money to put in something that may last 10 years. It may last 2. So I did ask Tim to go ahead. I said, just so we can see, knowing that these aren't available. But, again, talking to people who are in the business of using utility trucks on a daily basis, what would you get? What do you think we need? And, everybody came back with Altec. This is the size truck. So I asked him to go ahead and get these numbers. We know that, if we were to buy something like this today, we're 14 months out. But, there's nothing we can do about that. But that is what it costs. We're in a situation now where we're probably a week away from taking Christmas lights down. We've got veterans banners that everybody's wanting to go back up. Again, talking about storm damage, and we don't have a truck. And I think we've talked about RU is very good to help us out when they can. We've had Oliver Springs has offered to help us. But, the situation's going to come up where we're going to have a need and help's not going to be available. So I think it is something that in some form or fashion we are going to have to address. We're eventually, but wanted you to at least have this information. If this is something you want to consider, we'll definitely move forward. Get more information than this. If it's not something you have any interest in, we won't go any further with it. But I want you to at least be able to see if a new truck was something you wanted to consider, what that would look like. So that's what we've provided you here.
All right, so
Well, can I ask?
Yeah.
One question I was just going to ask is, do you have a plan on how to pay for it?
I mean, we can certainly come up with one. If that's something that I
Yeah.
think you all want to.
Well, I kind of what I'm getting ready to go to now, so it's 14 months away. So we'd have to put an order in now, which puts it into the next fiscal year, which we would put it in next year's budget in July, and that's how it'd be paid for out of that.
Do you have to pay before?
Right.
Or do you have to have
A deposit.
deposit or?
I would guess that we would have to just give them a PO, but I don't know. That would be a question we'd have to dig a little deeper in. A lot of places.
So that would help out a whole lot. If it's going to be next year's budget, we go ahead and budget for it in the budget. Because if it's going to be, I agree on one, I think there's less time than that on this company, but still, if you're looking 14 months,
You're looking
something's going to be coming out of the next year's budget.
20.
There are different ways to pay for it, obviously. My thought is, if we're in a financial position to pay for it, then why pay interest?
I agree.
So, I think that's one of the things, and you've seen this. Obviously we've got a very good diagnosis on our fund balance tonight, but we've started over the last 4 or 5 years trying to get away from having to borrow money to buy things like vehicles and stuff like that, so we don't have to pay that interest, and looking at our fund balance when it's healthy, when it's not, and leaving it alone when we need to leave it alone. And so yeah, I think it's if you guys determine this is what you want to do, I have no doubt that we can afford to pay for it, and I would certainly recommend doing that over borrowing the money. I mean, that's an option, but why pay interest unnecessarily? So
Can you?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, can you contact this company and see if it has to be money up front, or if it needs to be? What I saw was 30-day net delivery. And is this something that we would not have to put out for bid?
No, I would say that this is I don't know if there's a state bid price, but I think it is through HGAC, which the state recognizes. So No, we would not. There is a bid price for that we can piggyback on. I just had to find it, but
Okay, for the state bid?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if there's a state bid price, but I'm almost positive there's an HGAC, which the state recognizes. So
Well, the only question I'd have would be, I'll take, does that money be upfront or does it on delivery? And
Yeah.
I saw 30 days net, so I'm sure it seems like that'd be 30-day delivery. But I think, unless anybody has any objections, I'd like to go ahead and put it on the agenda to authorize, go ahead and get it ordered.
yeah, I'll get the answer to that. I would be surprised if a PO wouldn't do it. I would say that's what we would have to do, is just give them a purchase order and then we pay when it's done. But
Yeah.
I'll find out that for sure.
Ms. Humphries?
I just have a question. I mean, I definitely agree that we need a bucket truck, and definitely new is always better than used. But my concern is if we're 14 to 15 months out, given all the scenarios we just talked about happening, that could happen, and we need a bucket truck badly, and no one's about. Do we have a plan
Well,
if that happens? If we're looking at over a year to get a new one, what are we going to do in the interim? I mean, I know Rockwood Electric and they say Oliver Springs would help if available, but if in the event that there'd been like a tornado or an ice storm or something, the chances that they're going to have one available for us are not good. And I know we had an issue before with finding a rental. I mean, if in that scenario in the next 14, 15 months we really need one, do we have a plan of action if we just opt to go with new and not even look at any more used?
I mean, for lack of a better answer, I would have to say, we beg, borrow, and cross our fingers. But we don't have anything. We don't have anything in house we can use. So yeah, we would be at
Up a creek?
Yeah, I mean, we would just have to hope that there's help we could get, or that we could rent a truck or something along those lines. And it's easy. It's easier for the known. Taking down lights, putting up banners, fixing a traffic light, something like that, because you can schedule that sort of thing. But yeah, if a huge storm came in the middle of the night, chances are if it hits us, it's going to hit other people too, and then it may be a little
Right.
tougher. But
Or even with a traffic light, that's something that can happen suddenly. You can't always
yeah, I
plan
mean,
for that.
REU has just to single them out, and there's other people that have them, but they've said we'll help you any way we can, and I know they would. But there could conceivably be a situation where we couldn't get immediate help. It just depends on what's going on. But I mean, that is a.
Are you usually work on the traffic lights anyway?
I mean, they would if we called them, said we need to change a bulb. I'm sure they, you're talking a
just
pretty
usually
quick.
did if we could.
They may not be able to come that second, but within a reasonable period of time. The biggest thing I think that would be if it was a storm or something, and somebody like an REU or somebody else, their resources are committed somewhere else, then we just have to deal with that. But let's
And
pray that doesn't happen. But.
Same scenario. I mean, if it's going to be 14, 15 months out, then we're going to have the Christmas light situation again before we actually get this truck. So we would just be looking at renting one again.
I have a comment on this. Of course, I believe, the longer we wait, of course, everything's gonna go up. So if we can't decide on using one, I think we definitely need to go new. And another thing I would check into, just cause they say 14 months out, we're finding sometimes when you hear things like that, sometimes they might get here in 10 months. So maybe when we do the order, we can tell them, how bad we need one, and who knows, maybe it might be quicker in 14 months.
Well, that's what the manufacturers are saying right now. Now that could change, but I'm sure we're not the only one
Right.
on that waiting list.
Right.
So
I mean, if we can't find a new one anywhere, there's other cities and other utilities throughout the whole country that's having problems.
So if we wait, 6 months from now, that wait may be even longer. I imagine that as these things are getting made, they're going to go to the people who are already on the list. So
Well, maybe this situation might open up some more in the spring.
Could.
Could
Could
get
do it.
better. Yeah, but we are in a predicament if we need one. I thought, well, if we could buy a used one, which is hard to decide on, and could sell it when we got a new one, for, may lose a little money on it. Would that be a possibility? But I see, we're all having a hard time even finding the right used one.
I mean, I think the fact that new ones aren't available is making it that much harder, because people are using their used ones that much longer, and when a good one does happen to show up somewhere for sale, it's being sold before we ever find it. So there's just a lot of stuff out there that's just worn out,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of money to spend.
Well, I do agree. If we're gonna even consider a new one, we need to go ahead and move forward on it, because we know the longer we wait,
Yeah.
the longer it's going to be.
Yeah, and
Well,
prices are only going to keep going up. So
The feeling was when we first started talking about this months ago, the objection was there's not a new one out there and it's too much money to spend on a new one. And so that's when we backed up and decided to look at used. We could have it right away. It wouldn't cost as much, but now we're right back where we were with new one of it's going to take forever to get it and it's going to cost all this money. So it's almost like we've wasted all this time that we could have just ordered it months ago and been that closer to having it here.
we got hopeful with that last used truck that we found. We were told had a new motor in it. That ended up not being the case. So it's just, and everywhere you look, I mean, you get on these different websites and all over the country, and they're all, 200,000 miles and,
2 million hours.
yeah, it's just the same, and they're all in that same price range. So they've got a premium product, but to me, that's just not a good use of our money to buy somebody else's junk.
I agree.
That's just my 2 cents.
Any other discussion? We'll go ahead and put that on the agenda for next week. All right, number 6, discussion of authorization for the city manager to execute payment for a Freightliner commercial pumper from Briera Fire Apparatus in the amount of $375,000.
Yeah, and I put this on here. I mean, obviously this money's already been appropriated, but because it was such a big amount, I wanted to just bring it up just to get authorization to cut the check. Again, you've already appropriated, you've already approved this. This may seem redundant, but it is a large amount of money. Also, don't know exactly when the truck's gonna be available, but when it is, like to go ahead and get it rather than have to, if it becomes available in the middle of a month, having to wait and bring it now. Just go ahead. I mean, we know what the price is gonna be. It's it's not a custom truck, so the price is what the price is. So,
Is there any delay in that delivery, you know of?
yeah, I mean, they don't know for sure. I mean, there's sometime in the spring, maybe April.
Okay.
We're hoping, but they're like everybody else. They're backed up and supply issues, but that's the latest we're told. They should have some trucks ready by April. So,
All right. So we've already authorized it, so we might as well go ahead and put that on the agenda to get that 375 and get it started and going with. You never know when it's going to take forever to get one of those.
yeah. If we can get one now, we're probably a good idea.
Okay. So that's all we have on the agenda for tonight, so I'm going to go around and see if anybody's got anything. Mr. Griffiths, do you have
Yes,
anything?
I do have one issue, and when I mentioned, I know we have to check into it and see if the budget's even, where it can be done or not. But I've talked to some people about it, and the citizens of Kingston. I know when I mention this, everything hits dips, and not now it's popular. But the city park's tennis courts really needs to be resurfaced, and it seems like now pickleball's more popular than tennis around here. And I had some citizens in Kingston saying the city courts is pretty their need of improvements. And at one time it had the courts in good shape and the lights, which I know if we do anything, we'd have to do one thing at a time. The most important part would be to resurface it. And so I was going to bring that up, and may the park and recs and David can check into it and bring it to us and see how much it costs. And why I won't mention it now, in case there is money in the budget we can find to do that, maybe it could be done sooner than later, like maybe even in the spring, which would be nice. Because an issue we deal with too on this, the courts by the high school, first dibs is the school. And this time of year, they're going to start doing, tennis practice and all that. So bottom line is, it'd be nice to check into that. And over at Rarity Ridge, or wherever the name of that place is now, I'm not saying to do this, but if you want to really check into it good, they had 2 tennis courts. They left one as a tennis court and made the other tennis court 2 pickleball courts. Now, I have no problem keeping both as a tennis court and just make them used for pickleball. You have to lower the net and stuff a little bit, but that's all easily done. But bottom line is about keep on going about. Just want to bring it up and see if maybe we can check into that.
I think David and I discussed it earlier when we were talking about resurfacing track, and the tennis courts also come up. I think once we get to a point to where the stuff that we had listed out of that $2.5 million, is see how much money we've got left over to see what we can do with. So I think, we might be able to do some work at the track and fix the tennis courts with that money. So I think it's something we can talk about once we get to that point. We can bring it up.
And I did mention this to JR when Jeff had talked to me about it here a while back, and I had talked to JR about it about a month ago, and we were talking about what it would cost, and I asked him to check into the possibility of any grant money available for that. I had heard through the grapevine that one of our sister cities had gotten a grant a few years back for some tennis courts, and so I'm going to look into that. But I had asked JR to kind of check that out and see what he could find as far as availability for something like that.
That could be a possibility also.
We got an estimate for resurfacing the tennis court. I want to say, I don't have it in front of me, I want to say it was in the $25,000 range, which, we were actually surprised. We afraid it'd be worse than that. But so we do have that in hand. If that's something you all want to pursue, then, we can definitely go, move ahead on it. But
as far as the lights, of course, I'm talking about when I was young. The poles and stuff, lights used to work good there. Now, if I don't know if that'd be an easy fix once we got to that part, if we got that far, or would it not be? But who knows on that? What I'm saying. But the main thing is the surfacing right now.
Well, I think we probably got some spare lights coming down.
Yeah.
That would probably be sufficient for tennis courts.
yeah, I need to get with JR. I know that at one point they were looking on getting those lights back up. I don't think it was anything major, but I'm not exactly sure what they need. But we can find out. But
yeah, if it's something we can get there in spring, I don't think anybody would be outside right now playing tennis. But
No, well, there is a few crazy ones playing pickleball right now.
yeah, it was. So the estimate we got was $21,400 for the tennis courts. So that's something that whether we look at whether I think probably a couple different funding options, but if that's something you all want me to look further into and bring back to you, we can do that.
I think it'd be good to look at and bring it back in February.
What was the other surface that you all checked into? I can't even remember it now. Can you?
Well, so we had this same company look at. They gave us an estimate for the tennis courts and the track, and the track was not a good option. Basically, it was the same process. They proposed $145,000, which would basically put a surface on top of the existing surface at the track, but they would not warranty that because all they're doing is putting a cap on it and not fixing the underlying problems. And they said that it will crack through. So that's a lot of money to spend on something that is going to fail. But it's a different case with the tennis courts. So
Yeah, I'm not saying go that route. I just want to refresh my memory. There was 2 options at the time. I couldn't quite remember what that one was.
so.
How are the tennis courts at the high school? Are they okay, or do they need to be resurfaced also?
Well, that's school.
Well, I know, but
they have cracks on it. It'd be really nice if they would be resurfaced. And when David was able to add more lights for us, that's good. But overall, tennis courts, the course wouldn't hurt to be resurfaced or whatever, patched, whatever. And the lights really needs a few more, which I always say beggars can't be picky. We really, I told Dave several times, a lot of them, they really appreciate what the city park and y'all did on that.
Well,
But yeah, they could they do need a little work.
Well, that could be something we go to the school board and say, hey, we're getting ready to get a group in here to do this. Might be able to piggyback and have them pay for those as we pay for ours. So that may be something we look into.
Thought.
Anything else you got?
No.
Ms.
But yeah,
Thompson, do you have anything? Oh,
I was just gonna say, I'll put this, I'll be back in February. I'll
Okay.
get some information.
Ms. Thompson, you have anything?
As far as, I think Kelly had sent the email to two of the beautification members that their terms are going to expire on 3/1, and both members have already emailed back that they would like to continue on the beautification committee. So, with that said, I mean, is this something we have to advertise still yet for beautification?
But we have advertised already, hadn't we? Friday's paper.
So we could then add this then, not, it wouldn't be this, I guess it would be February's agenda.
Yeah, I mean, you said their terms don't expire till March 1st?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we could wait till February and see if anybody else is interested, that we might, you've got two people willing. I don't see why you'd want anybody else, but that's the way it is.
it's two people active and willing.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's a council directive. We were directed several years ago to advertise all openings, which, you could argue that either way, but as of now, that's what council's instructed us to do, so that's
Okay.
what we do. But
Got anything else?
No, not at this time.
Mr. Childs, you have anything?
I guess everybody's noticed the lots out on the interstate, coming off of the westbound ramp, coming around, and then some on North Kentucky. RU's had a lot of stuff going on with the weather, the last couple of weeks. I think it may be a transformer it keeps kicking, so it could be underground wiring. They'll be out working on it tomorrow. Hopefully they'll, have it worked out. If it's that transformer, they're just gonna go ahead and change it out. It's on Dogwood Drive. That's what works all them lights.
Okay.
So that's, like I said, for the last 2 weeks, I've had several calls, and I mean, it's dark out there.
Do they have a transformer?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
He said if that's what, it's kicked 2 or 3 times in the past, and they're thinking that's what it is, but if it's not the transformer, if it's underground wiring, it could be a long drawn-out process, because they'd have to
Find them where it's at.
find out
Yeah.
where it's at.
Okay. Got anything else?
That's it.
Ms. Humphries, you have anything?
Not much. We changed our meeting night on Park and Rec Board, as you know, so if we didn't meet last night, we'll meet Thursday. But there's several things that are going to come up that I can let you guys know about next week. But I know one thing, I don't know if David wants to elaborate on this or not, but is fireworks. Hard to believe we're already talking about fireworks again. But from what David said, they're going up considerably, so we've got some options to look at there.
we knew they would. I mean, they told us, in fairness, to expect it, that the price was going up. So they gave us several options. Vice Mayor Humphrey's going to take it to the Parks and Rec Board to get their recommendation. JR and I met about it. And to do the show we did last year, same duration, same size shell, the price over doubled it. I think it was $42,000. So we looked, and they had some cheaper options, but most of them involved shortening the duration of the show, which I don't think anybody would be in favor of. So we found a compromise package. I think it was $35,000 or $32,000. It was about $7,000 cheaper. Same duration, but it's an inch smaller shell, which we have a 6-inch shell. This is a 5-inch. Basically, that's how many feet in the air it goes. In talking to them, they said, most of our crowd is right there at it, looking up. They're not going to notice it. He said if there's somebody a mile away watching it, they may be able to notice that it's not going as high in the air. But, so we think that's probably the best compromise that won't impact the show, but did forward that on to the Parks and Rec Committee, let them look at it and make a recommendation and come back. But
I may have a little idea. I may have another idea on that too, so we can talk about it.
okay.
All right, you got anything else? Okay, I've got a couple things. First, we've got 2 appointments that need to go on the BZA. I've got, I think we've already advertised for those several times. I've got one that is said that he would do it, and I'm gonna contact another person. I'll have those names to you before next Tuesday. So, talking about the $50,000 that we have now set aside for the bathroom at the amphitheater, and looking at how much it cost us to get sewer down there to it, would almost wipe that completely out. It'd be close.
More than wipe that out.
Yeah. So, in talking with the engineers that had done the amphitheater and asked them about building a bathroom there, one of the guys came up with, why don't you get one of the trailers that has bathrooms in it that's portable that you could move around and move it from the amphitheater to Street Fest to up in the parking lot at the fort for Storm the Fort for whatever. So if David, if you would look at some of that and get us some information on that in back in February and see how we go from there. And the only thing else I've got is, can you give us an update on the traffic lights?
Yes.
And the big that you opened on the 27th?
Yes, so we just had the one bidder, that, of course, that we expected. And, I talked to them, their price came in, a little under budget, under what we earmarked for that, so that's a good thing. Waiting on them to get a contract to us. The lady in their company that does those was out for the holidays, so she's supposed to be working on that now. So hopefully, maybe as soon as one day this week, we'll have a contract in hand and we get that executed and get that moving forward. They were also going to go ahead and start reaching out to vendors and getting delivery dates and things like that on materials.
Okay.
So everything should start moving on that. While you mention that, just because it's the same company that's doing it, also probably in the next week, either this week or early next, they'll be on site, start the demolition at Southwest Point for the lights, and don't anticipate leaving once they're here. They were hoping to come before Christmas, but it'd been a situation where they'd work for a couple days and then they'd be gone for a week or more. So we should see them on site maybe as soon as this week. So.
Good. All right. Has anybody got anything else to discuss or bring up?
How much under budget were we on the traffic light?
Right around 14,000. So that's good. Yeah, that's right. All right, if nothing else, this meeting's adjourned.
You do.
They think you're a good witch person.
Thank you, I appreciate that.